Let's cross now to Washington, D.C. and Omar Samad. He is a former Afghan diplomat and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. So it's a pleasure having you on the show once more. So a U.S. envoy will this week try to urge the Taliban to end its military offensive and negotiate a political settlement. What are your expectations out of those talks?
Well, I think that this is another opportunity, a diplomatic opportunity for the U.S. and many others, the Russians, the Chinese, the neighbors of Afghanistan, and others who are stakeholders in the Afghan war and peace process, to see if they can move the shift away from a military agenda that is being carried out right now to a political one where the Afghans, both the Taliban and other Afghan groups who are fighting against them, to sit around the table and talk about a negotiated settlement. I think this is an opportunity. It's a tough one because it's happening at the time when the Taliban have made headways and they have captured about 9 provinces and provincial capitals in the past about 10 days or so, which is unexpected. It was unexpected. But it has created momentum. And how are they going to stop this momentum in order to move to a political table is going to be the question in the next few days.
You're right. The U.S. on one hand, though, says a considerable percentage of Afghanistan is now under Taliban control. But do you agree with Washington that Afghan troops can fend off the group?
Well, listen, the United States, NATO, 52 countries, if I'm not mistaken. We're in Afghanistan for almost 20 years. They were fighting. It didn't really amount to much at the end. They all got exhausted. $2 trillion was spent by the U.S. alone. Tens of thousands of people died on all sides, including about 3,000 Western troops. So at some point, obviously, you have to end the war. How you end it, and you make sure that the people of the country are the owners of their country. How we go about making sure that Afghans own their country and decide their future without any interference from others is going to be a big test. The next 2 days again in Doha are going to test that will. The will has to exist from both sides, both the Taliban as well as the government in Kabul.
Well, not just a big test, but obviously quite easier said than done. Do you think mistakes are being made here, or is there something you see can be done differently to successfully broker peace here?
We can talk all day long about the mistakes that have been made over the last 20 years, the last 10 years. 10 years ago, President Obama announced that he is leaving Afghanistan and the war is going to end. It took another 10 to 11 years to reach that point. So at this point, I think that we can look back at the last 3 years since Mr. Trump announced that he wants to leave. And then Mr. Biden spent about 3-4 months reviewing what Mr. Trump had done and decided, yes, we're going to leave. But it's how you leave and what you leave behind that's important. So I think that the mistakes aside, we need to focus on now and the opportunities that are present. And we need to make sure that the Afghan side understand that this is not a zero-sum game for Mr. Ghani or the Taliban. And if any one side has to make compromises or even step aside, like Mr. Ghani, if he needs to step aside for the future of his country and his people and peace in the country, he needs to evaluate that. If the Taliban have to make some concessions and compromises, they also need to evaluate that.
Mr. Ambassador, always good getting your perspective. Thank you.